Work session. Mayor, I know some of the individuals that are coming to speak on item 1 are not here, so we're going to push this off until next council meeting.
That's correct. Bruce Larson, who is providing the artwork for the Arts Alleyway, that's being funded by Fairhope Single Tax. So they were coming in jointly, and the single tax representative is actually out of town and was worried about his travel back in town. So we're going to pull that to the 20th.
All right. So if we're delaying that, do you want us, did you have something else you want us to fill in with, or do you want us to go ahead and just start through our normal agenda? And
No, you can start with the normal agenda.
Okay.
I did want, Richard Johnson's going to talk about the paving. That's on the agenda, but that's part of the agenda meeting, so we can
Sounds
go.
good.
Yep, we can move on.
Thank you.
All right, well, we've only got the three of us here for now. Do y'all have any committee updates, Councilman
Airport Authority
Burrell?
meets tomorrow, so no updates there. Industrial Development Board has not met, and so no, I have no committee updates.
All right, Councilman Martin?
Yeah, the Fairhope Environmental Board met yesterday. I was unfortunate, was not able to attend, but they did meet, not yesterday, but Friday. Status quo.
All right. And then the only update I have is that the library board meets a week from tonight, and then they had a fundraiser this weekend trying to kick off fundraising efforts for their project to build out the upstairs space that we regained in 2019. So actually just had a meeting with them and look forward to hearing more about that. Next item up, we can do department head updates, or we can just go straight through the work session, through the agenda, and then if you've got something at that time, we can do that. So first couple items, I know Hunter, we got a couple final adoptions.
I think I've got
You got quite a few, actually.
6 of the first 7, maybe. And we've got the slides, so we can flip through those if you want to. These are not public hearings, so the first one is a zoning amendment for the rooftop terrace. If there was any questions, I think we got everything resolved, but be happy to address anything if there's any outstanding questions on that one. Or we can flip through the slides.
Real quick question, Hunter.
Sure.
I just haven't heard any feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, so I'm assuming that people are by and large happy with that ordinance. Have y'all received, has the planning department received any pushback?
I have not received a comment, positive, pro, or con.
Okay.
So
All right,
outside of our planning commissioners and council.
All right.
So I think we got something that is palatable. Now, it's always, when we make these amendments, people don't care until they see something in the real world, and then how could y'all do that? So but we're always reacting to those things, so I don't foresee any problems. The second one is the amendment to the reserve on the corner of Volanta and Greeno Road. Joe, are these slides there? Yes. So just as a refresher, this was the revised project. It's mainly changing the pond layout, actually creating wet ponds. So from on Greeno, it will be a more attractive solution, reducing the roads, keeping the same number of units. However, adding in the beige color there, top right of the screen, is adding what they're calling a professional pad. It's not a separate lot, but allowing for a professional use, and they've restricted those uses to the list here. The one thing we did add was it's professional office, so to be clear on that, I'm sorry, there was a clinic use, and clinic is listed within the medical office clinic. That would go, we clarified last week, the applicant was completely okay with that. That would go to Board of Adjustment for final approval. All clinics within the city do that now, so this wouldn't skirt that review. So this would still go for Board of Adjustment if it was a clinic. Now, if it's a medical office, small family dental office, things like that.
Yeah, the only thing
wouldn't
I was
have
worried
to.
about, I saw a clinic and I saw surgery.
Yep.
And that's gonna need.
Yes, sir.
You can't just come in and have surgery.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is and I think on this page, we don't foresee any problems, but there was a traffic study done on the overall site. We don't know exactly what this use is, so we will review that and make sure it falls within the specs of the trip generations calculated, and it could require revision to that. And then those were the conditions there. This did pass through the Planning Commission with unanimous recommendation to approve with the votes of 8-0. Do y'all have any questions on that project?
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
So I believe it went up from 26 to 30% green space. That was an improvement. Did you say that the number of units stayed exactly the same, so there's no change in density?
You're basically adding 1 unit for that professional office. So
Okay.
but what you're, so this was the previously approved plan. And if you look on that right hand of the screen, those are, they call them cottages, but they're attached 2-unit independent living. And when you move, and there is the.
Can you go to the next slide? No.
Yeah, so they've rearranged those to fit in it's kind of a different layout. Same number of cottages, but is the addition of that 1 professional office space.
Yeah, and it's less impervious ground. It's more pervious ground, which I
Yes.
really appreciate.
You know, and if you look at the layout of the ponds, I think one of the bigger changes, this was a dry pond for the
That's a wet pond.
retention.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit more organic shape, and it is a wet pond now, so that will be attractive. So that's the building fronting Volanta did not change whatsoever. So that's the majority of the units that were approved during the MOP were all in that very large building.
So I'm just curious, so I have to ask. So I really like this, first and foremost. But my question is, why was it not, is it fluid? Is that what it is? Like, just because we added this, now all of a sudden we start thinking about more green space and things of that nature? What happened? How does that work? When we have something that we want more green space, we want more pervious ground with our new sites because of our situations here with flooding and things of that nature. You always have to be aware of that. So why can't we think like this from the beginning?
A lot of people that do PUDs don't know exactly what they want to do. So this client knew exactly what they wanted to do so they could start laying out the puzzle pieces and make them match. A lot of PUDs we see that are non-residential, there's one desired product, but maybe not know what the rest of the 75% of it is. So it's a challenge sometimes to lay those out. Now, what prompted this was actually a good marriage of what worked for what we wanted and what worked financially. So in this layout, there's a lot more streets, a lot more, each of those streets requires utilities.
That's the answer. Green space is cheaper.
Yeah, well, it was a much more efficient layout, and it worked.
You don't have to mow a pond.
That's right.
Right. Green space is cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I hope other people are looking.
Looks like they've stubbed out a lot of the utilities over there on their site. What if we didn't approve this? They stubbing it out based on this one we hadn't adopted yet, or they stubbing it out based on the old plan? Because they darn sure got a lot of pipe in the ground over there.
So there was, some of the utilities are outside. What will become our utilities are actually outside of the pipe, so a lot of stubbing there that you see. They will be crossing Hoyle to connect there. There's a cross of Greeno, getting across Greeno. So right now, anything that is stubbed out on the east side of the property, they've done so at their own risk.
I'd say so.
Or south side of the property, I'm sorry. Now, there is some main lines going out to that Hoyle right-of-way along Greeno that I think are safe no matter which layout is approved, and maybe that's what it is. But anything around the big building is already approved, and that's a lot of what's being stubbed out now, prepping for foundation work.
Okay.
Okay, you want to go through the?
Yeah, let's
The
Jump,
next one.
jump to, what, number 8?
Okay, let's see if, so this is a site plan approval, no public hearing required for Polo Crossing. It also had a 5-unit multiple occupancy that the planning commission has approved, conditioned on this site plan being approved. This property is just south of Bayview, or Wolf Bayview Funeral Home on Greeno. It is Zone B2, has been for years, although it's just been one single-family home on the property. So this didn't have a recent rezoning request. And the layout, we went through quite a few revisions of this layout, but it is, and this is a very busy drawing, but if you have questions, I can help walk through it. There are 5 units within one singular building, bookended on the north and south by restaurants with a drive-through, and then 3 retail spaces. The park, I kind of give you some of the evolution of how this went through Planning Commission. The first proposed project pushed to the property lines as close as possible. There's some very large trees out there. This is a commercial project that tree preservation is important, so they've redesigned. They're creating a buffer area here against residential property, actually saving some trees here and here, very large oak trees, working the drive aisle through it. Parking is meeting. They've got the impervious in the back, pavers here. The connection to the trail along Greeno Road, they've provided a pedestrian access that will cross the drive aisles with bicycle parking and a picnic area to the south. There is a fence along the eastern property line and southern property line, and then the landscape plans also include additional buffer. Let's see, I can show you the landscape plan here. So they have the 20-foot required tree preservation area and green space buffer along Greeno. The revised landscape plans are shown on this plan. Detention is on site. It kind of connects to the property to the north. Really, the only thing there is kind of one thing lingering here. We've got a couple of conditions. They, in my opinion, skimped a little bit on the landscape plan in this highlighted area at the back side of the parking lot. So we've asked for a revised plan there. They've got the required parking spaces. The building elevation is shown. The sign is out of scale, but they'll meet our sign ordinances. It does meet our height requirements. It's wood siding, I'm sure hardy board siding, stone veneers and standing seam metal roof with aluminum windows and doors. That's the path I was talking about that does provide their pedestrian connectivity. This is kind of the lingering thing that came out from Planning Commission. So during the Planning Commission, their traffic study required if you're driving north on Greeno, a 445-foot turn lane to be installed. And they had spoken with AlDOT, who gave kind of preliminary, okay, but we didn't get confirmation of that. So speaking with AlDOT, that's not exactly the case. The 445 feet runs into Windsor Drive to the south about 220 feet. So you can't get that stacking in that turn lane. So AlDOT is still reviewing this, and we'll have some kind of requirements. I don't know what that solution will be. There's a very good chance it requires a tweak to the site plan. What we're proposing is a condition of approval here that they will do whatever AlDOT says and install those improvements. And administratively, we can look at that site plan if one particular solution could be just a reduction in the square footage of the building, taking out one unit. It could be moving the ingress and egress. As long as what we're proposing is, if the commission or if the council so chooses, is to approve this based on that condition, and administratively, we can handle any minor changes to the site plan. If it hits a threshold where it's not substantially in conformance with the approved plan, they'll have to go back through the process. So that's really the only gotcha. But the other conditions, for prosperity's sake, is the planning commission did vote to recommend this 6-0, recommend approval with 3 conditions. The irrigation shall be revised and located within the subject property, not within the right-of-way. They've already sent us plans to do that. Parking shall meet the impervious requirements as applicable. They were 1 spot short, pretty easy to accomplish when we see building plans. And then a revised landscape plan to include the screening around the dumpster and additional plantings between the parking and detention area.
Yeah.
I added this 4th one since the planning commission. Any improvements required by ALDOT shall be installed at the developer's expense prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Yeah.
Hunter, can you go back to the previous, where you're showing the site plan itself? Yeah, well, right there.
And let me get
I
you.
can't, is there a better one that shows the parking?
Yeah, let's do, that one's probably the best one for the parking.
Okay. So down, if you're looking at that, down on the lower left, right near the drive-through on the southern end, says that's all compact car parking. Up in the upper left, all compact car spaces. You have 3 spaces for, I'm assuming, regular-sized vehicles, which in Fairhope means a Ford Expedition or a Suburban.
Yes,
And
sir.
so if you go over to the right-hand side, I see some more compacts. But what I'm getting, I see a lot of compact car parking. So are they actually meeting parking requirements? Because, you know, if they're just chopping up spaces to meet the requirement, there's going to be a problem there.
So-
When people try to get out of that parking lot.
It's probably a conversation we will bring to you. They are meeting the requirement. That, they're putting that compact in is a requirement of the zoning ordinance. I think big picture, a question we should probably be asking ourselves is compact spaces, when that was put in, I think it was, everybody was looking at the electric cars and small cars and going that route. What compact spacing now has become is golf cart parking, low-speed vehicles. Spot down Greeno Road is probably not the most appropriate place for that usage.
It's illegal. Right. You
Yeah.
can't get there.
They can't get there
You
on
can't-
a
you
road
can't
that
get
has a
there.
45 mile an hour
You
speed.
can get there, but it's illegal.
So our parking requirements require a certain number, and then whatever that number is, they can do 30% more, but a certain percentage of those has to be compact car space.
Yeah.
But you've also got this whole impervious side parking lot over here, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And I think the
Pervious
question
or
is,
impervious?
should we even be requiring
Pervious.
compact
Yes.
Sorry,
spacing?
thank you, pervious parking lot.
Because do those sit empty
Yeah.
because there's expeditions everywhere? I think that's a very valid conversation to have.
You know, I said this during planning commission, Hunter, and I just think this is right there where that is, off of Greeno, and I just think it's gonna be a cluster, man, to be honest, just to be blatant. Coming in, coming out, the traffic with I just think it's gonna be a cluster, man, to be honest. That's just what I'm envisioning. I don't see a clear, you know, big trucks, things like that. It's a drive-through, you know, I'm concerned about the traffic that and there's a popular place. I love chicken salad chicks, you know, and I'm not the only one. So it's going to be a very voluminous situation there. And I just put on record that I'm concerned about that, like egress, ingress, traffic flow.
And we
all of
did
that,
look at options. So
you know, to be
one of the
honest.
tools we do not have in our toolbox is conditional use.
Right.
With conditional use, you can say a drive-through is a use that is approved based on certain conditions. One of those being you're not causing traffic problems on a state highway by backing things out.
Yeah.
If you are, we can remove that use. We don't have that currently within our ordinance, and we did explore other options. I've spoken with Jennifer Olmsted at length about business license, having a separate business license for the drive-through portion of the restaurant and being able to pull that if it's a problem. We use some national codes, and there's not a code for drive-through only like that. So
Yeah.
it is, you know, it's a concern. I think that's what Aldot's looking at now.
Yeah.
Being that the median there at that area is, you know, there's a turn lane north and southbound. It's the suicide lane.
Yes, that's what
you
I
know.
mean, if you, yes, exactly. It's just-
So there
I just
is,
don't get
but that, from a traffic design standpoint, works to keep the flow moving and keeping things out of, it's really that northbound traffic that's turning right into
Right,
there. If
correct.
this parking lot becomes a log jam because of the drive-through or whatever reason,
And
and
they're
there's
coming
not enough
from
room
both
for the
sides.
cars coming out.
Right, they're
then
coming
they
from
can
both
block
sides. They gotta come,
northbound.
yeah, so that's just,
Yeah.
I just see in my vision, you know, I just see a lot of congestion there, to be honest.
Hunter, I see, look out in front of tenant space 5. If you look at that handicap parking right in front of tenant space 5, there's, the parking space is 11 foot wide, and you've got a little 5 foot between that handicap parking spot and the one directly to the north that's in front of tenant space 4. And then in tenant space 4, the handicap parking in front of that's 8 foot wide. That's mighty narrow.
In space, oh. Yes, and you do have that van parking handicap spot, so there is 2 handicap spots and then the striped area.
They
It
are
does
both,
give
those
a
both
little-
legal handicap spots?
Yeah, that
Okay.
gives a little bit more room, in it than a traditional, spot.
All right.
Just with that striping in between.
That's 11 foot.
Yes, you
Yeah,
have to
okay.
have one
Thank you.
that meets that requirement.
And that's one per shopping center, because I don't see another one out in front of any of the other businesses. The other is 8 foot, and
I don't know where that one comes from. Is
Yeah,
that
the other
in-
2 are both 8 feet.
How many?
The number of spaces is dictated by the total number of parking, and at least one of your handicap spaces has to be van, except for van only.
okay, thank you, Eric.
Okay.
And that condition, I mean, this is one of the things we always find ourselves in the middle of. We typically are the tip of the spear on reviewing any development. We're the first one people come to, but that doesn't mean, in a situation like this, AlDOT doesn't have a review. You know, if there's wetlands involved, we've got Corps of Engineers, there's other outside agencies. A lot of those don't want to be the first one to look at this, so, it's always a little bit of a dilemma for us. Do we not approve something until AlDOT gets a final word? Well, they don't do a permit until it's been approved by us, so,
That's the order of things.
yeah, there is a review happening. They're asking those same questions about traffic into 98 right now and looking at those. I think they've gotten a revised traffic study from the engineer.
I like the project. I think it looks good. I think we're gonna have a lot more demand south of town and east of town for projects like this. So I know we can expect a lot more. If there's anything that, I think we need to be prepared for future proposals on this, I think now would be a good time to be planning accordingly.
And I think a lot of rezoning cases, even those that have conditional annexation, we are looking at, you know, limiting the number of drive-throughs. You know, there's very few B2s we've given out in the last, even before my time, last 10 years. So we are considering those things, but this is a property that's been B2 and has that right to do things. That doesn't mean there's not some merit to critically looking at their plans.
But they're not asking for a rezoning.
This is
business.
not the rezoning request. This is a site plan. And it is a valid question. I mean, we have debated this. The first plan we saw only had 2 drive aisles on the south side of the building. So the question there just became, well, you're backing up into 98 if people can't get around the building to Chicken Salad Chick. So there was additional lane added there. So, yeah, there's a, you know, what I will say is the applicant has amended the plans to address our concerns, from the saving the trees, the impervious surfaces, to the landscape plans and buffers. So I think it's fair to, if there is more that we need to look at with a traffic study, that they can accommodate that as well. Or
Yeah.
reduce the size of the building. It's always an option.
Yeah, the idea is great. I'm just concerned about the citizens, as far as traffic and the flow of things. I mean, have nothing against the project itself. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, do we want to, we're looking at it, do we want to say yes to something and we know it's going to be a possible problem? And can we resolve that problem? If we have a resolution to that problem that we see forthcoming, then I'm okay with it. I mean, but do we have that resolution?
No.
That's what.
That's
the
ALDOT, that is in
Right.
ALDOT's hands right now, because
Right.
that's their state highway.
Exactly.
So even if we wanted to say, okay, do a 400-foot turn lane,
Right.
they might not allow that.
All right, council members, y'all ready to move on to
Yes.
the next one?
Yes.
I know we've got a lot to cover.
Yep.
Hunter, next one up,
Sir.
also site plan approval.
Another site plan approval. This is for Fairhope Urology, which is just south, I'm going to go ahead and jump to the page. This is just south of the reserve we look at with a PUD amendment. So Hoyle Avenue is currently an unopened right-of-way. As a part of the reserve project, they are installing those improvements and opening that right-of-way to the public, which will be at some point an acceptance of the paving and the infrastructure installed within that right-of-way. This project, it's a little confusing on this map, so I want to show you on this one, and then I'll jump to a better plan. This project, it was a green nursery, received a rezoning request 5 years ago approximately, something along those lines. And the property was never cut out to really marry with the rezoning request. So one of the things they're doing within this is clarifying where the property lines are and what is rezoned from B2 to, or went from R1 to B2, and what will remain R1. We had a preliminary plat that did that at the same time as looking at the site plan. That was reviewed by the planning commission and approved. This piece of two pieces of property here were two of the lots created. The property line is here. The property to the west is the R1 property. Property to the east is the B2 property. The building as proposed sits on the corner, pushes up against the road while providing the 20-foot green space. And parking here, we do stub out in case it's shared, but at this time, there's no plans to do anything different on the property to the south where the nursery building is. Elevations were provided by the architect, meet the height restrictions. This plan did not. They've been revised a little bit. I think the parapet wall in this image was a couple of feet high. We've got revised plans that do meet the height ordinance, or the height requirement in our ordinance. Landscaping plans have been reviewed. They actually got a lot of accommodation or accolades for their plan. This area to the west, kind of highlighted in gray, this is a project, I know Richard's worked with engineers of both of these projects. There's been drainage concerns and through this conveyance for a few years. This project, the reserves are collecting a lot of the water and releasing it at a rate that's acceptable. And then this project is not really detention ponds in this area, but what you call step pools, just to kind of keep that flow from eroding the banks and slowing that down. Their detention is actually for the site under the parking in the parking area. So, but that will convey to this, and there's two pieces of residential property, and there's drainage easements across both of those, so that we're kind of clear in any future development to the south. There was an MOP for this project, so a lot of the utilities were handled in that. Parking was allowed. I won't go through every one of those things. There was recommendations from the Planning Commission. While they did recommend approval with 6-0, there was clarification of all utility easements on private property should be resolved, screen the transformer pad, coordinate site access with Hoyle Avenue improvements to the north. What we wanted to prevent there's 2 projects on different construction schedules. We don't know the answer to this, but it's feasible that the Urology Center opens before the reserves and Hoyle Avenue is open. Well, if Hoyle Avenue is not open, they don't have access to the site. Currently, this property and the Green Nursery is owned by the same owner, so we did require them to at least provide temporary easement for access in case the Urology Center opens first. The condition coming from the Planning Commission was a right turn only from Hoyle Avenue
Yeah.
On the Greeno.
Yeah.
onto Greeno.
It's another suicide deal.
So this is a
Cross.
challenge
I
for
mean,
us,
it's-
and that's why it's in red. It was recommended from Planning Commission. And what becomes a problem for us, and it's okay if that's what it is, I just want to clarify, with the language of that strong, well, if AlDOT says no, it's going to be a left turn only because that's the way we approved it in the reserve, then this project dies. This project is not approved. So if the council would like to amend that to work with AlDOT, we have, I think, Mayor, you, last council meeting, talked about a trip grant we're working on at the intersection of Valanta and Greeno, and can even look at this
but those are
intersection at that time. That's an option, and we can word this a little more softly, look at the possibility, and we can be working on that research and see if it is feasible. But that's a pretty strong language right there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody on council, this is my opinion, wants to kill a project from simple wording if there's a way to fix the problem. Is there language to amend that would keep us, the urology center going, or what does that process look like?
Did you say just a right turn only from Hoyle unless otherwise dictated by AlDOT?
Yeah,
I
that'd be
mean,
fine.
just a simple amendment of language.
Yeah.
And you
Because
know.
everything, there's a,
But I don't want anybody to get hurt. And I know when we were in public commission meeting, this is something that lots of us were strong about again, is that these places are coming up on Greeno, but we don't have the traffic coordinated with the construction. And once again, for whatever reasons, I believe that's a little bit out of order for the citizens. We have to do a better job of kind of getting that coordinated, in my opinion, as we continue to grow. And it's something that I'm concerned about, right here on Greeno, because it's going to grow. So we have to learn and start getting our ducks in a row on how we're going to do this, because we don't mind the business. We just want to do it right,
do you have any guidance on what because you don't have
Yeah,
any
but-
traffic engineers on staff.
Right,
But
that's the thing.
we can go do some corridor studies if you want us to explore that and bring some cost estimates on what that would be.
Yeah, because this is not going to be their last, right? I mean, this is not going to stop, right, Jimmy? I mean,
Yeah,
this is
we're
not,
gonna
this
see
is something,
more.
this is a pattern, as you can see, so,
And they're happening so fast. I mean, we
Right.
181's a good example. Every time I think people get an idea on what a project's gonna do, there's another one following it up and
Right.
changing that,
And
especially
that,
in the state
that's one
highways.
reason, Councilman Martin, too, why I mentioned last time that whole Valana intersection. We're gonna have to look at that whole corridor through there from 104 all the way down to Gayfer, because there's a lot of development slated through there.
Right.
And we're gonna have to look at that whole area, especially if we don't get that A-Trip grant this next go-round. I mean, it's gonna be a burden on the city to look at improvements at that intersection in particular.
I mean, do we, and then we're handcuffed because we still have to go through the state correct, to do those things, you know, so, you know, I don't,
And there's always some irony. This intersection here was actually supposed to have a median, but, you know, in the previous, we actually have an ordinance that says it has to be open. Now, there's some changes here that allows that to be tweaked, but Hoyle Avenue was, in an ordinance, it's going to be a left turn out.
I have several questions about this. One, can we go back to some basics? I don't, this site plan doesn't match this hodgepodge of squares and rectangles and diagonals and where is this going? What, is it all of that in pink or is it?
No, and I do apologize, we did have,
I mean, we need some explanation. What is it? Where's this going?
The preliminary plat helped explain this, and it's not in front of you. That was at Planning Commission, so as we take a slide, we did leave
Well, you want us
that
to
off.
approve something, but we don't have enough information to know where it's going?
So Hoyle on this project is the gray area, the road right here.
Okay.
So
yeah, but that's going.
they,
east
in the
to west.
preliminary plat, they split the property about this line. We don't have that on the overlays that we could have quickly shown.
And that's the
And we didn't know
reserve,
if that was
correct?
approved. No, sir, the reserve is to the north of Hoyle.
Up here, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the nursery,
So
got you,
this
it's the
is-
old
this is
nursery.
the
Got you. I see
nursery
where
building
we're at.
and where all the
South.
greenhouses
I
were.
got it, I see it now,
in
my
this area.
bad, my apologies.
So approximately split here.
Okay.
And 2 lots created. And if you'll notice this little jut out here, I'll give you a point of reference.
Okay,
That is here.
I got you.
So.
So
the-
2 lots made up of some line that has been drawn somewhere roughly in the middle of all that as you go north and south.
Just to the north, this is a drainage easement, so
Okay.
it's just to the north.
And so what's going on with the remainder of that? Is that 1, 2, 3, 4? I mean, that looks like almost 7 parcels of land.
Two,
This,
four,
and this
five,
is
six, seven.
this has been I'm trying
There's
to be
2
nice.
easements there, so you don't
There are
count
actually
those.
many other pieces of property. So there's a historic plat here with 50-foot lots
When you say
underneath all
here-
of this.
when you say
We've
here-
clarified that in the preliminary plat. And then these parcels were created, not necessarily lots, but parcels were created and reflected on the county's tax. So the preliminary plat has clarified and rectified years of moving pieces and.
So if this is
historic
approved,
lots.
does it
We gonna subdivide it?
This is nothing to do with the lot lines. So
Okay.
this case, that was handled in the preliminary
So
plat.
so the medical practice will traverse several different lot lines?
They will have there's 2 lots here. So their parking will cross 1 lot line from a B2 to a R1.
To the west here.
Yes. But there will be 2 remaining parcels to the south that the Greens are going to continue to own and have no immediate plans for development. That doesn't mean it won't happen in the future, but it could be 1 year or 20 years down the road.
Okay. So,
The preliminary, all of this mirage of these lots and the historic lot lines that were 50-foot wide, and Aldot came in and created this diagonal that changed other things. All that has been rectified with a preliminary plat that just creates 4 lots.
Okay.
2 B2 lots and 2 R1 lots. The R1 lots will not be developed because they basically contain nothing but drainage easements. So we're looking at what remains, 1 B2 lot undeveloped just to the south and rests here.
okay. So, you made mention of, just talking about ingress, egress, and potentially stating right turn only or whatever AlDOT desires, and the mayor commented that, we need, and to both hers and Corey's point, we do need to be looking forward, thinking on this and preparing. But we were talking about we had applied for an A-Trip grant there at Volanta, and what happens if we don't get it? But in just the previous discussion on item 8, we said that any changes to the turn lane the expenses are gonna have to be borne by the developer. Well, why didn't we impose that on the people developing the big property at Volanta and say, if you require a turn lane, you're gonna pay for it?
So we did. They've given us a check.
Okay. so
Already before the
Where the
improvement.
A-Trip grant would pay for what then?
The turn signal and
A
everything.
turn, because that, with all the traffic that comes through there, that's going to warrant a turn signal. I feel fairly surely that it will. But that developer did partner with us on pedestrian crossings and a turn
Okay.
lane.
So you're talking
and other stuff.
signalization then, not
They're
basically
putting in.
land and asphalt?
Yeah,
Not
and they're putting in, the development to the north is already installing the improvements within the Hoyle right-of-way
Right.
as well. So
Okay.
they do have those improvements.
So the mention of the A-Trip would be for signalization, not for land acquisition and putting in a lane then? Okay, that clears that up then.
Only thing that has not been considered, and we have multiple projects, is that what happens to Hoyle, because it lines up with Dyer
Yes.
right across.
Exactly.
So as part of that, would probably either a corridor study or part of that A-Trip, we'd look at that, come a little south and look at that intersection as well.
Well, if these people finish this urology clinic before they finish the development to the north, what right do the people to the north have to shut down a public road for their own purposes of construction?
Well, they said
They don't, I mean, but that was more of a concern for us, trying to be a little forward-thinking. And there is an additional route, Live Oak, is it Live Oak, just to the south of Live
Yeah.
Oak Avenue.
through
Yeah,
the greens.
So they can come through, and that would be a very temporary solution.
Yeah, once again, what I'm speaking of is what you're talking about is the two, Dyer and Hoyle, people, those apartments are coming there as well over there. Something's building over on Dyer, correct? Are we building something over on Dyer?
Y'all voted it down, right?
That was denied at the
That was
last.
denied, all right,
night.
good. So,
Are
but-
we? I'm not building anything. over
Yeah,
there.
well, somebody is, there was. Anyway, but still, churches there, people will try to, what I'm afraid of, crossing over that traverse of 4 lanes that's like Frogger.
Yeah, it is.
You
You're
know,
right.
I'm
You're
being
absolutely
serious,
right.
dude. I don't know if you ever played, but it's just.
It's my wheelhouse.
Flipped it.
I'm too young, I've never heard of that. What is that?
I could turn it over, but I'm just saying, everybody's not that good.
No. Yes.
No, but seriously, that's my concern.
Okay.
Frogger.
Yeah. So we have to come up with something to protect our drivers.
And I think we can, that's something we've done in the past, looked at kind of comprehensively. But this same issue is happening on 181. It's coming in faster than.
Right.
Especially when we get to a state road that,
Yeah.
we have a partner to work with.
Okay.
So,
Any additional questions or comments, y'all, on this site plan review and approval? None?
all right.
All right.
I
What
do
else you
have-
got, Hunter?
I do have 2 bonds I want to discuss, and I believe Chris will be here during the meeting too if there's questions.
Bless you.
We have 2 maintenance bond agreements in front of you tonight, items 10 and 11. Those are for Old Battles Village 4A, Phase 4A, and Old Battles Village Phase 4B. Have 2 nuances that I've got solutions for each one of those, but for both of them, is the same, we have the same concern. When we sign these maintenance and guarantee agreements, that is the sub-developer signing that agreement. And the language within those agreements say that they'll protect, while they're building homes, they'll protect the roads, sidewalks, all of those things. Any of their subs are going to have to monitor this agreement, and everything that's being turned over to the city now will be in good shape in 2 years. Typically, handed to us with that agreement is a bond. That bond is signed by the street contractor. that's putting in the streets and utilities that has done the work. That creates a mess for us at the end of this agreement. We go out and look and say, you know, half the sidewalks are torn up, the asphalt's gouged, and the person holding the bond says, hey, we did the work right. It's not us, it's the home builders in the last 2 years that have come and torn everything up. So we're in a little bit of a battle all the time on who's responsible for what. And the bond companies typically take that contractor side. So what we would like to see on any of these in the future, and what we're proposing with some alternatives, is the developer provides the bond. That way we don't have any back and forth and really have to debate, because that's a problem on their side. Developer, contractors, engineers, that's a problem on their side. Figure it out. Our job is to say, this is damaged, fix it. It's in the agreement, and we have a course of action, but right now that's taking them to court, not calling in a bond. So we would like to propose that the developer signs these bonds, or provides the bonds. There's an alternative we can talk to Chris about the bonding, the contractor actually signing the agreement as well. So there's two ways to skin that cat, but we've got to do something, because our time spent on chasing these things down is incredibly consuming for a lot of the staff members when we need to be doing some other things. So if y'all have any questions on that one, there's a nuance to 4A I will get to, but if y'all have any questions on that or any guidance, the way this is written, it's a resolution to allow the mayor to negotiate and sign these agreements. They become effective once the mayor signs them. So if you do approve of that course of action, we will go back and make that requirement to the applicant. Once they get all the documents in, we'll sign the agreement and it'll be effective. So we don't have to have that solution tonight. We can work as a staff level with the mayor's final approval on that, if you so choose, based on that.
So that doesn't affect items 10 and 11, right?
This is written, it's a resolution.
What was that?
I don't know.
Who was that? Okay.
That, what we'll need some guys on right now, the paperwork given at the final plat is our standard agreement with a bond from the contractor. So we will have to go back to the developer and say, we need you to provide the bond, but we need y'all's guidance on that.
On
if that's the
10
way
and
we go.
11?
Yes, sir.
So do we want to go ahead and vote on this tonight then? Because it doesn't state the mayor goes and negotiates the bond. It just says we accept this is accepting the improvements for public maintenance.
Okay, and that's where, it's probably we did talk about that. That was kind of in his wheelhouse, looking at the agreement. I think we can do that if you want to accept it with those conditions.
And it's given authority.
We will not sign it. The agreement doesn't start until the mayor signs it. So if we need to do some work at the staff level, we can do that and make sure it's signed and the agreement reads as you so see fit.
Yeah, I want to make sure the resolution's, proper, whatever, if we need to
Is that-
tweak that.
Fair, Lisa? Do you think any conflict in the way the resolution is? Yes, but it will not, that will not begin until the mayor signs. So if that takes us a month to work through those details, it doesn't begin, and we don't take it.
Let me just clarify. Connor, are we saying, because you said two different things, and I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Are we trying to change the narrative as far as how we write these contracts? Or are we trying to accept what we have here as written?
So what this says, it allows the mayor to execute the maintenance agreement. So
With the
we can do
bonds.
that just as it's written right now, if we so choose, the way we've been doing it for years. Mayor can sign that paperwork tomorrow. Or if the council with your guidance says, no, we would like to have the developer or subdivider hold the bond, we can go do that. As soon as they provide that bond, then we can supply it to the mayor to sign and begin that maintenance.
Do that.
But,
Execute the agreement.
but how it's written is just saying we're gonna authorize the mayor to
That's
go
the old way.
negotiate that and then
Yeah,
sign it.
I get it. This is the old way. There's no negotiation.
All right, that's what
This is
I'm
the
saying.
old way.
Executing
Yes.
the agreement.
Yeah,
This
this
is the old
looks
way.
like the way we've always done
This is the
it.
way we always done it.
Right.
I would rather do it the better way, right? That has not, this
So-
way has not been serving us well.
The agreement is the same. The bond is what's different. Right
That's
now,
right.
we're holding
Okay, I
a
get
bond from a contractor instead of the developer.
Right.
So.
Is the difference then down where it says that she would execute it between the city and the subdivider? Is that where the difference is? Is that where the difference lies?
The agreement is already drafted and the language is between the subdivider and the city.
Yeah, but we're speaking of the
That
bond.
doesn't change. The bond is just the document attached
I guess they're saying,
with that.
what's the difference in 10 and 11 versus how we've always done it?
There is no,
Typically, the agreement requires a bond. The bond is now sitting in a contractor's name.
Right,
That's
and
the
we
way
want it in
we've
the
always
developer's
done it.
name.
So we would not actually execute the agreement until we get the new bond.
So there's nothing different in the way we're approving this, is different in the way you're gonna execute it before it gets signed off on by the mayor is the only
The
difference.
difference is the type of bond and who's actually signing
Right.
or holding the bond.
It-
But
it
but
seems
either
like-
way,
This
that's
is
not
identical
captured
to
in
what
the.
It
we're
sounds
doing.
like-
The bond's gonna be different.
It sounds like the council has to give the mayor some type of permission to go sign that
bond.
bond on
She
behalf of the
doesn't
city.
sign the bond.
She doesn't sign the bond. She's just executing the maintenance agreement.
Accepting, the-
When she signs on the dotted line for that maintenance agreement, that begins the 2 years. So the bond is just an additional document there.
Got it, okay. Let me
That's
ask
not a
this.
part of the resolution.
What does council need to do to alleviate or get rid of the problems that we're having with the old way that we were doing things?
That begins a step. So accept this resolution with instructions that the subdivider needs to hold the bond. Now, there is a chance that the subdivider says, nope, not gonna do that.
Yeah,
We
that's
want-
what we're trying to get at, because this,
right.
this just allows her to sign any agreement.
Any agreement.
Any agreement.
Right.
And if we don't want that, any agreement signed, we want it with the subdivider signing the bond, we need to stipulate that in here.
Just say that.
We have to stipulate that.
So if they came back, if the subdivider came back and said, no, we don't want to hold the bond, what other options are there? And those need to be tweaked. The agreement needs to be tweaked, and that needs to come back because you have a copy of the
But then
agreement.
that's going back to what you did say earlier, was to allow the mayor to negotiate
Yeah.
and
And if the wording in the language, in the agreement has to
she's
change,
negotiate with
it
the
has to come back to you.
subdivider that they're going to sign the bond,
Correct, not the contractor.
right, the contractor.
Yeah, but is that in here?
But she won't execute this unless the subdivider agrees to sign the bond.
Yes.
But
If the subdivider wants to change the wording in the agreement, it needs to come back to council.
all right,
So
so the
if
way
they
you've
wanna
got
s-
it is the way you want it approved right now.
So it says it here. It says that here.
Yeah, because it lists the developer rather than the contractor.
Okay. The maintenance agreement's always been the developer.
Right.
It's just who's holding that bond. And that's just for a portion of the work, not the overall
Right.
maintenance of that.
I'm with you on that.
So, now, for
Marcus, you
A,
got all this? We need to tweak it when Chris gets here, if y'all need to wordsmith that, to add a sentence or two. Okay.
and we'll talk that through. Now, 4A has another nuance. So,
4 is different?
4A has another nuance. The sidewalks were installed in 4A. We made a change to our zoning ordinance our subdivision regulations that required sidewalks to be installed at final plat. This project was not, we set that at effective date a few months out to give people enough time. The engineer of record told the contractor sidewalks had to be installed, so they went and installed them. There's no problem with that. You can install them early. We've come in and the construction happened. They're about ready for CO on houses at this point. We've been debating this for a year, and just didn't get resolution or anything. What I would recommend is not to accept these right-of-ways without some sort of hold harmless, because the sidewalks have been broken, they have been torn up, and they're about 85% complete now. I drove out before we got here. So that, we proposed that, allowed the developer to come and bring that to us. They didn't. They were willing to put a performance bond on the sidewalks in the full amount, but I would, we've had, you know, if somebody was to go out, I went by today, some of the sidewalks are covered with layers of gravel. You know, if it's a public sidewalk, if we accept it, that's a public sidewalk, there's an accident, we're liable. So it's still a construction site on 10% of the houses in this phase. Not many, but it's still the case. So, you know, as part of this execution, if we did not accept this without a hold harmless, there's kind of two ways. If you really want to be harsh, we can say we're not accepting until it's all fixed, and you don't get COs for any house. That's a very harsh
Yeah,
statement.
so, so what's the problem? Why aren't they, what's the holdup? Money for them to finish or fix these sidewalks?
No, the development pattern has typically been, we're going to finish the sidewalks when we build a house.
Ah.
So if we're not finished with houses, we're not
Not
gonna
gonna
finish
finish
the
it.
sidewalk.
Ah, okay, that's what I'm asking.
So, in this one being unique, we saw immediately that just all the sidewalks were torn up. You know, they're putting construction entrances into every lot instead of, you know, putting one construction entrance in and accessing multiple lots at once. You know, every lot has gravel crushed, their dumpsters installed on sidewalks. Now, they didn't have to put the sidewalks in. If this would have been under our current regulations, we would have been monitoring them and stop work order every time they're tearing up our sidewalks. So, this is a bit of an anomaly. Shouldn't happen in the future, but there is an acceptance in front of you to accept a right-of-way with some damaged sidewalks.
And you're suggesting we either do not accept it or we accept it with a hold harmless?
Gotta hold harmless.
Now, if you don't accept it, they're gonna be, Eric, do you know how long, when would you guess they were gonna be wanting to CO on this first house? And this is 4A, so this is, they haven't done any house, they haven't got CO on any house yet. But they're gonna be wanting those.
Well, I mean, they probably got people that have these houses under contract or ready to close and move in. I mean, this, you
That's why I'm
almost,
bringing you two options.
yeah, I think,
Yeah, we don't want people.
we don't want to disrupt
A family.
all sorts of people's lives.
Right. Because
Being,
of
playing hardball
developers.
when a
Yeah.
hold harmless will, I
Resolve.
think, address the same issue.
So in this case, for 4A, the acceptance, allowing the mayor to execute the maintenance agreement as long as they are providing a hold harmless and the bond is in the subdivider's name.
Yeah, so we put the hold harmless on, that doesn't mean, they will complete these sidewalks.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're, you know, if they waited 2 more months, they'd probably have all the sidewalks done because they're really building houses. We do see some phases of development that it takes 10 years to get all the houses built. They're almost, I think every one of the houses is underway
Okay.
and the sidewalks will be. Lisa, can speak to that.
All right, thanks, honey. I get it.
All right. Any other questions on that?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Didn't mean to keep you up here so long. Richard,
Yeah.
I need to probably get you to jump up here and talk about paving projects, et cetera. So sorry for disrupting the order of things.
Yeah, I'll jump into the real easy ones pretty quick. Number 14 is Arts Alley. I think that's self-explanatory. I've had the pleasure of being with you for 4 years and 8 months, and we've probably talked about Arts Alley
Every
at
week
least
or
every
every
quarter
month.
in those 4 years and 8 months.
Yep.
But persistence will pay off. I'll guarantee you that. Number 19, you know, we did close out the Pecan East project and for the Symbol Clinic, and at that time, you know, we did not have an in-house electrician, so that project was bid based upon a man-hour, crew hour estimate for electrical work. That ran a little bit high. But we did have a cost savings on the actual building part. But this is just to close out the documents. We got about a 1% change order there to complete that. And, you know, if I could get every project to be within 1%, I'd be happy about that. And then 21, I will just tell you, this is an opportunity while we have a contractor there. This would be the last 30-something feet of old bulkhead. And the Marina Management and I are kind of supportive of if y'all be willing to do that, we'll get that knocked out, and we'll basically have new bulkhead from one end to the other of, and when I say new, it's all within 7 years of age. So that's, you know, hopefully it's buying us a good maintenance future there. And if it helps your feelings any, I don't know if you've heard this from the city clerk, FEMA has retroactively gone back and are increasing their participation for PA from 75 to 90%. So in basic terms, the project that's there, we're getting 15% more match from FEMA on that. We don't know what the state's going to do. It was 25% on us, 75% from the federal, and then the state usually would come in and split the 25.
12.5.
Kim thinks they're going to split the 10, so we're going from 87.5 to 95 reimbursement, which is a good improvement.
Yes, but I've already recognized that revenue last year.
Yes, she says I'm doing funny accounting, so,
Okay.
but I just said if it makes you feel better. So with that said, the resurfacing, and you have kind of a little matrix in your packet that kind of looks like this, and it may help. For our annual road resurfacing, there was a request to look at 3 non-roads, the youth baseball at Volanta parking lot, including the Turner Drive that accesses off of Volanta and loops through there, the Nick Center parking, as well as this complex, City Hall Civic Center parking. And we did include that in the bid response, hoping to get good numbers. No surprise to anybody, the number's a little higher than we anticipated. So the first column is the road resurfacing. Second column is the participation from gas on 2 roads. That is Orange and Pecan. We are resurfacing those from Church Street all the way to South Mobile. So those are major roads in the Fruit and Nut. And as you recall, they did a gas service upgrade where each of those roads were cut probably in 40 different locations to upgrade those gas services. And so they're going to participate 50% in the resurfacing because they kind of participated in an early demise of the quality and structural integrity of those roads. So with that, the recommendation is that every one of these projects, letter A through L, are a la carte, and they were bid that way. So they can all be treated as added alternatives in any form and fashion. So our recommendation is that we stay with just the road resurfacing, and we're not going to recognize projects E, F, and H, which are the 3 parking lots. That's Volanta Youth Baseball, the Nick Center, and the parking areas here. And we're going to put those back out as a separate standalone bid, because there are smaller paving contractors that do just parking areas, and we're hoping to get a little bit more interest and maybe attract paving companies that don't do mainline road paving. So that is our recommendation, and just to kind of give you the budget numbers, we had $403,000 allocated in the public works side, and when you add in the participation from the gas fund, we're in a deficit of about $13,785 over budget. And I will tell you, if you look at Project L, in the past, we've just found when we're resurfacing, we find old utility patches that require some leveling. So we did put a placeholder in for 100 tons of leveling asphalt. I don't anticipate that we will use all of that, so I'm hoping that we will probably be very, very close to coming on budget. And all of these resurfacings do have some built-in overage in the tonnage, so we only pay for what's put down. So I'm hoping to come back to you when we close this project out, and we'll be right there at budget numbers. So.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Richard on the resurfacing project?
I have a few questions, and it may require the treasurer to answer them. So we are what I would say a lot more over budget, not a little bit over budget. We're over budget by 26%. I just, quite frankly, thought this might have made a good work session discussion before it made the agenda tonight. I mean, I know that you're up there because I expressed an interest in this earlier today. So, but I appreciate the explanation, but there's going to be $91,000 spent from the gas budget, but what does that do to the gas budget? I mean, I'd like to know how that impacts gas, because then we'll be $91,000 more of spending there than we had budgeted. I mean,
So I did look at the gas budget. They have budgeted in the maintenance of plant, $340,000. They've only spent, through February, $41,000. What is included in that budget was $200,000 for an on-call contractor or engineering, and that has not even been out to bid. We're mid-year into the year. So looking at that money is not going to be spent by the end of the year.
We do have that out for qualifications.
So it's out there for qualifications. I mean, it's still a couple of months out before you would be awarding that contract out. So we have some, some cushion there by the time the end of the year
It's been pushed
comes.
out, but it looks, I mean, I haven't been convinced it's not going to be spent this fiscal year, though.
It's gonna be close, but as of right now, we're just requesting qualifications. We're still a couple of months out before y'all even bid it, and we're already halfway through the year.
So how are we doing on revenues?
The revenues are doing well too. I mean, cold winter. Y'all probably got those phone calls too. So, I mean, this was me trying to figure out that normally that the gas department damaged the road. As them damaging road, they should be responsible for rebuilding that infrastructure. And that's what these two roads came in at.
And I know when those roads are all chopped up like that, I mean, need to get them repaved. It looks bad. It
Are we
rides
talking
rough.
about Orange and
Pecan.
Pecan. So we're saying that we're pulling from the gas because we're saying the gas company chopped up the roads?
They
is why we're
cut
pulling from-
40 cuts in there to make,
Probably at least.
yeah.
Well, I'm not disputing that any work needs to be done. What I'm trying to
Yeah.
find out is where we're getting the money from and what's being put off, what's not, we're gonna be at a deficit at the end of the fiscal
but-
year because we spent it on the roads and not what we had budgeted for.
So, yeah.
And if we have if we have revenue to offset that, then it's a wash. Otherwise, we're gonna be in the red at the end of the year on the gas department.
Well, just to compare from revenues of the end of February last year, we were at 4.2, and February this year, we're at 4.8.
What's budgeted? I mean, how does that compare to budget, though?
We're
I mean, we all know we're adding services, so, I mean, that's not surprising.
So percentage we're at 50% of our budget, what we budgeted for revenue.
We're at
at
what?
50?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
What month is
Well,
this?
yeah, but is that,
And that's for 5 months.
yeah, but that's like collecting property taxes.
I know.
You collect them all at the front of the year. You collect 90% of them, and you don't collect any the rest of the year. So that still doesn't tell me. I mean, I'm sorry, Kim, but it still doesn't. You just, people burn their heaters and they burn the gas in the winter, and that's when you sell most of the gas.
And you're right, it gradually goes down towards, as we get to the summer, those revenues go down. To me, looking at it, looks like we're a little higher than what we were last year at this time. That's what I'm going by. I went back and was just trying to look at some expenses,
Right.
because that was what you would think. You need to cut an expense to offset the expense that wasn't budgeted.
All I'm asking is this. This is my whole point in making all this happening. This is the information that we need to know before we vote on a $100,000 increase in an item. And we're just not being given enough information here to make an informed decision. This should be in the package. This is where we're at. This is how we're going to pay for it. Instead of, we want to spend 26% more money than was budgeted. I've said this 1,000 times in this meeting. 1,000 times.
Well, and I can sit down with you. We definitely have like some creek crossings and stuff that we won't get to this year just because contractors are so far out. The $200,000 is gonna be close. We did talk to the state today. We're gonna have to move a portion of the gas line on 31. It is reimbursable by the state, but we're gonna have to fork up the money up front. But the creek crossings and stuff that we do have, y'all get with Kim. And there are some creek crossings and stuff that just won't get done because of contractors are so far out and we just can't get them here before next budget. So there's definitely some money that we can.
So we've got some
pull.
flex in the
Yes, sir.
expense side of things. What about, and I'm thinking moving forward, because I do think once you've torn those roads up, if you're done with the cuts and
Well-
everything's finished, then I think you need to repave it.
Well, it does, but it should be in the budget.
Well,
It should be-
next year, we
that's
need
all
to be budgeting
I think that's what
for-
Jack is, yeah.
I know the points Jack's making are all valid. I mean, if we're gonna spend money, we need to understand where we're getting that from. But I think also moving forward into 22 and 23, we need to allocate some expense to
Yes, which-
wastewater, to gas, to electric, to whoever's cutting up roads. Maybe they
For
need to
roads.
have an allocated amount that we build into their budget for the year.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
you could
that's
even
a-
have
yeah.
a slush fund in each
contingency.
utility or even
Right.
Public Works that says, all right, we're gonna dip into this
Contingency.
contingency fund. Because we have these unknowns every year. And I have no doubt that we have the money. I don't. I'm just trying to make the point, drive it home that, we really toil over the budget. Sometimes we talk about things longer than we should over a $2,000 or $3,000 item, right? Or a $50,000 or $75,000 item. But then when we get to $104,000 item, we just gloss over it in a council meeting and go, yep, let's approve it because we need to do it, but without asking where are we getting the money from? That's all. I mean, that's all I'm thinking. We need some answers.
So I can
I
give
mean, if
you-
your wife comes home and decides that, she's spending $80,000 on the car instead of the $50,000 you had budgeted, you're probably gonna know how you wanna know how you're gonna pay for it,
Well, good analogy.
She
Thank
gonna
you.
pay for it.
All right,
And-
next.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any further questions or comments on that or any of the other projects Richard brought forward?
And I will tell you, and maybe it's shameful on me, is I'm spoiled by Kim because I'm kind of the person that catches the fish and she has to clean it.
It's not.
And I think the hard thing that Kim and the mayor and I discussed is if I thought I could stand up here and say, hey, I think next year gas prices are going to be lower than they are now, which is a driver of cost of asphalt, that let's put off let's throw a dart, pick a road that we kick out to get it under budget. But I think next year they're going to be more expensive per
No, you
mile to
can't do
pay.
that.
So,
No, that's not.
So
Nobody expects you to do
that's a
that.
scary
No,
part.
what we
So-
can't do is what Jimmy was talking about. What we can do is
In
moving
the
forward,
future.
in the future, learn from this, step on it, and go to the next level where we put contingencies when
Yes,
we're
sir.
chopping up roads in the capital budget, and when we're doing that grueling 6-month budget, that we have this in there, and it's not coming back to us right now like it is. So,
Well,
thank
and-
you. Yes,
And
sir.
one thing that I told Richard is that, we have a list from Rebuild Alabama, and those streets are prioritized, and people do pay attention to it. So when we put off paving their road because we've made a lot of utility cuts on a couple roads, they know that they're being put off. They want to know why they look at the budget, they look at the council agenda, and they want to know why their road's not being paved. I received 3 of those phone calls this time. I'm like, we can't keep putting off roads that need to be paved because we've done utility cuts. And that's one thing Kim and I have talked about, is that next year we'll make sure it's budgeted in those projects to do that paving. It's not something we have traditionally done here in the city, but it's something we need to look at because we have put off paving for a year or so, and there are a lot of streets that need attention. And we're going to have to be more diligent about making sure the utilities are paying for those.
We're lucky that we're still in a boom time, we're still
Yeah.
growing in leaps and bounds. One day, I hope it's when none of us are here, but one day we're gonna get caught by this assumption
Yeah.
that we can spend that money, and money's not gonna be there, and we're gonna have to say, no, we're not gonna spend another $100,000. We simply don't have it. Something's gonna, but we need to fix this road, so that means something else is not gonna be done.
That's right.
That's going to be the harsh reality. We've been very, very fortunate for many years that we can count on essentially revenues exceeding
Right.
budget.
Sure.
All right, I know we're running tight on time. Jason, do you have a few minutes? cover items?
Jason has 10 items on here today.
How are you
You
doing
need one
today,
more
sir?
phone, Jason.
Sorry?
You need one more phone.
Work person. That's all. And one day I'll just have one.
Might have a landline
Work will be
only.
no more. I'll just have one phone.
You gonna have a landline and that's it?
No, I have a cell phone that I will not keep up with. I've
Fair
carried one a
enough.
long time.
Well, not too soon, though. Not too soon on that one phone
Oh.
plan.
So we got items 12 and 13, which is it's the SRF.
12 and 13?
Yes.
And I'll start out with those two for Jason. These are two projects that we've talked about, per doing the pre-engineering work, so we can actually submit to ADM or the SRF for funding for these. So these are two projects that we just, again, pre-engineering. To be honest, ADM got I think an astronomical amount of submissions. So these may even go into next budget year when we submit them, but we are not paying for anything right now except the engineering portion.
The shovel-ready
Right,
projects was
correct.
the name of the game.
And it's just the engineering report.
Yeah,
They
it's just
can
the
do it.
report.
I mean, it's simple. The application is simple, and it's just an engineering report. So I would be very surprised if it was $2,500. I mean, it's,
Okay, not much.
because we've already turned in two, and the engineer that did it for us didn't even charge. I mean, I just don't see it to be a lot.
Okay. Number 15 is also you, I believe?
Yes, that's Hayden Fence. That's the fence for treatment plant 3 over on County Road 33. That's the fence to property.
Okay.
The existing fence is just for the one well, and then the treatment plant's got a separate fence. Part of that got destroyed during Sally. So this is a new fence for the whole perimeter of the 5. I think it's 5 acres the city owns it.
So is that fence from FEMA or insurance on that fence? No. Okay.
Is number 18 yours as well?
Yes, 18 is 8,000 feet of 6-inch SDR 11 HDPE. It's for the sewer force main to go from St. Michael's up to, on St. Michael's Way, back around to 181 for a new development.
Okay. Number 22 is yours, I believe?
22 is the rehab of the
Lift station.
River Mill lift station. It's due to Overland and Overland townhomes. That's off of, just right up the road from it, off 48. So
And
The-
council,
it's the reimbursement, really. The aid of construction for the project was $55,000. And the 61 lot, the subdivision 61 lot is $1,500 a lot, SDCs, which is $91,500. And then there's 15 meters at the townhomes, which is another $22,500. So it's just a reimbursement. This is our system development charges. It pays back for system development.
Perfect.
got it.
Yeah.
And then I've got one other item, council, that is probably going to need to be added to the agenda as item 26, and this is also, Jason's, this is for the a temporary lift station for Publix in 104.
Yes, sir.
And basically, this is something we just have to have it done by May 1st, and I think we'd be cutting it too close if we
Okay.
don't address it in tonight's council meeting, unfortunately. So we got to try to walk this one on. It's for $28,190.
And this is a temporary station just to get Publix up and running until the permanent station's put in.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Jason, you need to cover?
We had if you have any questions on this, on the 28, I mean, this was hurriedly gotten from J.H. Wright. We talked, they had the pumps on the shelf, so it's something we could get quick, and our crews can't put it in. So there wouldn't be any holdup.
Is this something that we normally do? Or would something happen as far as process when we're building something new where they need us to actually put a temporary lift station? Ha. It's a good question.
I can't answer part of that. I think the mayor should answer.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that we're doing for that, all that development that's going on out there. One's a force main. There's gonna be a larger lift station that goes in that the developer is paying for, that will handle most of that development out there. But in order to get them service as soon as they want it, that's not all gonna be ready, so we have to do this temporary service.
Okay.
That's it.
Any questions for Jason? Any of those?
And you all do know, we had a main break this morning real early, around 3:30 or 12 that we've had a lot of trouble with over on Greeno South, broke around 3:30 this morning. So, and by the time, we got out there and got it valved off and all, you're looking at closer to 6 o'clock. Lost a lot of water, it stirred a lot of the water up in the system, so there's a lot of complaints with discolored water. And it's because of the manganese and iron, coating the pipes and changed the velocity, all the water going south. So, and then unluckily, we had another break here in town with our contractor hit us down on Church Street. So it was kind of a two-edged sword this morning. So we just had, I know we got bombarded with water complaints. We tried to reassure everyone the water is safe to drink. It has not ever been not safe to drink. And we're the first to tell you if there is an issue, but there is no issue, it's just discolored water.
Okay.
But it has improved. I noticed at the office before I came up here, the water had cleared up. And I think the restaurants downtown, the water's cleared up. We flushed, did all we could to speed it along, but we did have some major issues in town, discolored water.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, Jason.
All right, trying to see who else is still out there.
I got
Wes, you got a couple
18
things.
and 19,
Yeah.
16 and 17.
16, 17.
Yes, sir. So 16 is the house regulators that we set before the gas meter. And then 17 is the gas meters themselves. So we did up this. The last gas meters took a little over a year to get here, about a year and 4 months. So we did up it to 850, anticipating it taking, another year and a couple months to get the next shipment in.
All right.
Do you feel like we have an adequate supply now, then? You feel good
Yes,
about
sir.
it? I mean, there was a time where we were really concerned, right?
We got 400 from Florence.
And then we've got,
500.
right, we have right at 800 gas meters right now. So,
But we got down to about, what, 15 or 20 or something?
well, we got down to 0, we had to buy some from another gas company. So,
Yeah.
but those 800 are in stock, and we're gonna go ahead and order another 800.
Is there a
if
market
y'all
in
choose
buying
to.
these things and marking them up and selling them?
So luckily, Huntsville didn't do that to us when we bought our gas meters.
I need to get over here and gov
They
dot
pretty
deals
much
real
gave it
quick.
to us at cost. So,
Just
All
like
right.
toilet
Any
tissue.
any questions for Wes on that?
No.
All right. Jeremy, I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, Jeremy Little, I know that. Let's see, Mayor, you covering 20, 23, maybe 25? Are you covering 25? And then the only one I skipped over was number 7, was,
And I can address that. So the council executed a lease with the Center for Writing Arts, and part of that lease that we had done previously, it included the utilities, that the Center for Writing Arts would pay for the utilities. That's a city building, and that's something that we have always taken care of. And so in order to make sure we are following the lease the way we should, since it hasn't been followed in the past, we were coming back to ask if the council would amend that. That group is mostly run by volunteers. They typically come out of their pocket for the small maintenance items, and felt like this was something that we could do because they add so much just to the culture here in Fairhope, and hope the council will agree to do that.
all right, sounds good. Well, that works, y'all. Let's take a 5-minute break. 24, oh, I'm sorry, 24 is going to be pulled
Oh, it's pulled.
from the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Sorry, thank you for catching that. I'd already scratched it through.
Yes, sir.
All right, take a 5-minute break and be back.